New gun legislation introduced yesterday by the federal government. We talked about this earlier in the show. It's pretty wide-ranging. We are joined now by Public Security Minister Marco Mendicino. Mr. Mendicino, thank you for your time this afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon.
But a bunch of questions really that need to be asked, and this is something that came up when we asked our listeners about this. People say, yes, this is a good first step, if we can call it that, but the question is, why not a complete ban?
Well, it is a big step, and, the legislation that we introduced yesterday is the most sweeping legislation that we've seen in a generation when it comes to gun reform. It is the product of many conversations and engagements with law enforcement, with people who have survived gun violence. I engaged in your hometown in Montreal there with Police se souviennent and many others. And I think what we arrived at was a step that we could take quickly, decisively, that would have a great effect at reducing handgun violence. And that's just one of the ways in which we're going to keep our community safe. On a go forward, people won't be able to buy, sell, transfer, or import handguns, which means that the trend of that universe of firearms growing stops. And that is one important and critical step that we can take quickly.
Now, I am sure you have heard, as we did today, reaction from legal gun owners saying this new law is too wide-ranging and unfairly targets them. What do you say to those people?
Well, we respect law-abiding gun owners, and respectfully, this bill does not at all go after them. What it does do is take very seriously organized crime, and it does that, again, in some very specific ways. One, we're raising maximum sentences for those illegal traffickers at the border who are trying to get guns into Canada. Two, it gives police new powers to help interdict those gun crimes from occurring in the first place with new wiretap provisions that relate specifically to gun crime. And three, our budget this spring provides more resources for CBSA and the RCMP to build on the progress that they made last year, where they made a record number of illegal firearm seizures. That's good news, but there's still a long way to go. So we're going after organized crime. We're going after handgun violence, and we're going to work very closely with the community. And I have to say, I'm extremely grateful to Mayor Plante as well as Minister Guilbeault, both of whom have reacted very positively to this legislation.
So also reacting positively, as you mentioned, you spoke with Police se souviennent, the organization. We spoke with Nathalie Provost earlier today. I understand you spoke with her yesterday. She is a Polytechnique survivor. They are encouraged, and as I'm sure you know, they're usually disappointed when these kinds of announcements are made. That said, Minister, she did say they still want extensive laws on automatic weapons and moves to prevent gender-based violence. So how and when might that happen?
Let me come to that. But first, I just want to tell all your listeners that I have never met a more inspirational person in my life than Nathalie Provost.
Mm-hmm.
And just the way in which she's expressed to me that this is her life's work is what has kept me and all of my colleagues in government going to get this legislation to where it is. And I know that they're pleased with where we're at, but I know that they're going to continue to encourage the government to go even further. So I just want to say that at the outset. But when it comes to domestic violence and gender-based violence, there was a StatsCan report that came out just last week that showed that those trends are going in the wrong direction by introducing red flag protocols, which allow people to go to court and apply to have licenses suspended and guns taken away if the individual poses a threat to anyone or themselves. We think we can get at it. There are some very good pieces of advice that we got from women's groups and other advocates around the need to protect the identity of those that come before the courts, as well as making sure that this is not a burden to survivors. That, in addition to the new mandate letter that I just issued to the RCMP Commissioner that requires that law enforcement leverage existing authorities to respond immediately to domestic violence, is another way in which we hope to make some important progress on this.
Can I ask, with respect to what you said about making sentences for people who get caught importing illegal firearms are going up? I know you went from 10 years to 14 years in some cases. The argument has been made that it's all right to have those laws, but they're not minimums. Should they be minimums?
Well, look, I would say that by raising the maximum sentence in relationship to serious gun crime, that we are sending a very powerful and clear signal that if you're in the business of trying to traffic a gun across an international border, if you're in the business of being part of a gang and you're going to use a gun to hurt or terrorize a community, then there's going to be stiffer sentences that are on the books, which will be accessible to the judge or the courts to dispense as they see fit. And when you combine that with the other measures that are in Bill C-21 that provide police with new investigatorial techniques that allows us to leverage our relationship with the United States. You know, I was in Washington, D.C. not too long ago where Secretary Mayorkas and I talked about reinvigorating the cross-border crime forum as a way to go after criminals. The message should be very clear that this is not a way. This is not a way to be contributing to society, and we need to also get at root causes. But that's how we're going to take on crime.
And with respect to one of the big changes here, you went, and let's face it, Bill C-21 has been in development, if you want to call it now, for quite some time. That was one of the issues that gun advocates had. Now you're going to have a mandatory program as opposed to a voluntary program. How soon till that goes into effect?
Can't be soon enough is the most honest answer, because we're 2 years into the ban of the AR-15 and assault-style rifles that have been used in mass shootings here and internationally. So I just want to acknowledge that. At the same time, it's a first ever initiative in Canada. So it's large, it's complex. What I said yesterday, what I'll say again today, is that we are going to imminently launch the first phase of this, which is a consultation with industry so that we can come up with a compensation system for those owners who bought the AR-15s and assault-style rifles when they were legal. But I want to make sure that we are beginning to buy back by the end of this year. It's not going to be easy, but we're going to get there.
All right. Natasha?
No, I'm just that's exactly what I was hoping to hear. Like, how are you going to do it? But it sounds like the wheels are in motion, and what you had
they
to
have
say.
to.
Mm-hmm.
They've got to move. I mean, I totally get it. And you know, with meeting with the groups yesterday, and honestly, being able to stand shoulder to shoulder with them, that was very powerful. You know,
Mm-hmm.
It's not an easy thing for survivors. It's not an easy thing for anybody who has been for whose lives have been forever altered by gun crime. And I have just the most profound amount of respect for them.
Public Security Minister Marco Mendicino on new federal government gun control legislation. Minister, thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you both for having me.